Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Imperfect podcast. I'm your host, Kirsten Pfeiffer, and I'm here today with the wonderful Danielle Schaaf. Danielle is a faith-based life coach and dating coach. She is a teacher with a master's in education, self-proclaimed people pleaser, which is so relatable. She loves salsa dancing, traveling the world. She just had an amazing online summit called Walking in Your Worth, which, as you can see in her sign there, it's such an incredible series that she had. So I'm super excited to have her here today, and welcome, Danielle.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. I am so excited to be here. I mean, we're just going to be talking about some awesome, encouraging, inspiring content today. So excited. Yes.
I'm so excited. Yeah. So just starting out, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Yes, I would love that. I mean, who doesn't love talking about themselves? So I'm Danielle Schaaf, and like Kirsten said, I've been a teacher and I'm a life coach. And what really got me into life coaching was my background and my degrees are in literacy. And so I actually am really good at teaching people how to learn another language. Have you learned another language, Kirsten?
German. Yeah, like
okay.
we're both German. So I was like, I noticed that your last name was German, but yes, that's the only other language that I'm like proficient in, I would say.
Okay, amazing. So I'm fluent in Spanish, and I realized through teaching language for so many years that what always blocks people is not the grammar rules. It's not the opportunity to learn another language. It is simply their self-worth and their self-esteem on if they actually believe that they can attain a type of fluency in the second language. And guess what? That's not just in language learning. It's in tons of areas of our life. Like how we view our value, how we view ourselves is just seen across the board in all areas of our life. And so I decided in faith and in courage to start a business around helping people attack certain areas of their life where they struggle to believe in themselves, they struggle to believe in God, they struggle to get to that next level, particularly in their relationships, whether it's a relationship with God, with themselves, with a dating partner, or in a marriage. All of us are in a relationship in one way or another.
Yeah.
And so I've just realized, oh man, I have a gift to help and encourage and inspire women to know who they are, love who they are, and get to that next level of life in their relationship and whatever that would look like.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've watched some of your content and like that's absolutely what you're doing. And it's cool that you're able to do it in like a public sense and to a lot of people, but then also individually, one-on-one with life coaching.
Yeah.
And so on that topic of worth and how you've noticed a lot of what gets in people's way of, whether it be pursuing a language or a relationship or really anything that's on their heart, a lot of it comes down to self-worth. And to you, what does it mean to have a healthy self-worth? And what are some of the secondary effects of not knowing or claiming your worth?
Oh, this is such a good question, Kirsten. And whoever's listening, I hope you're inspired and encouraged by this answer. So to have a healthy self-worth, in my opinion, looks like something like this. Your no means no, and you own it. Your yes means yes, and you own it. You know how to process your emotions and get to a healthy space instead of letting emotions, run you or letting your emotions dictate your life. Because listen, when you're down in the dumps and you feel like crap about yourself, there is a way to get out of that. There's a way to know your emotion, feel your emotion, but then like move on, from the emotion. So it looks like owning your emotions. It looks like, being confident, like walking with this worth, like, you know what? I'm Danielle Schaaf and I love who I am. And there's nothing you can do or say to change my worth. Now, I may be triggered, right? I just talked about emotions. That's different than like letting it, none of us are free of trauma or pain or rejection. We don't live in that type of world. We live in a world that's full of that, but it doesn't have to define us. And so I think knowing your worth is knowing how to process your emotions, knowing when rejection does come, it doesn't, crumble you into a million little pieces. And then you feel so awful and horrible and say mean things about yourself, right?
Absolutely.
I think it also looks like attracting a healthy partner or loving who you are, owning who you are, like I said, that confidence, and then also having a loving marriage. Like for those people who are married, you know, are you living your best marriage? Are you owning your worth within your marriage as well? And so that's what a few of what it looks like to know your worth and to walk in your worth.
And I love what you said about there's a distinction between like having worth and then like that's not always perfect, right? And so like
yes.
just because you have self-worth doesn't mean that you can't be shaken or triggered by trauma that happens in this world. And I actually was reading a quote the other day about humility and how like I think it was Mother Teresa who said it, that like humility means that you can't be shaken from either criticism, but also from words of affirmation. So it's like not thinking less of yourself or thinking more of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. And so
Yes.
I feel like getting to that place of humility and getting to that place of self-worth where like acknowledging, like you said, if something bad happens and it makes you feel some kind of way, like that's actually normal and that's human, but that it also doesn't determine who you are. And just knowing like this is a thing that happened to me, but this isn't because of anything inherently wrong in my worth. But I think acknowledging the feeling is so important too, because otherwise if we just push it down, then it like festers. And so I love that you said that about like experiencing those emotions and being okay with that. And I feel like another big part of it too is like once you have your self-worth and you feel like you're solid in that, not feeling like you have to prove it to anyone. Because there's been times where I'm like, oh, especially in dating, like if they can just see, they just haven't seen like my greatness yet or my worth or whatever, like, and so I just need to prove to them and I almost need to like work for my worth. Is that something that you've struggled with? And if so, like how have you overcome that?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm so glad first of all, you said the word humble. Mm-hmm. That is actually key to all of this. Mm-hmm. To knowing and walking in your God-given worth, you have to be humble. Mm-hmm. Because being humble is admitting that you have a problem or that you're struggling or that you need help or that you maybe need to hire a therapist or a life coach or a business coach or whatever. Listen, I've hired all the above because I know how to admit my weakness. Like in scripture, like God talks about our weakness is actually where more of our strength is found. And I've learned over the years that being humble, being able to admit what I'm about to admit right now. Yes, Kirsten, I have worked for my worth time and time again, and it has let me down. It has constantly let me down. And I have 2 degrees. I have a life coaching certification. I have a really great job and a thriving new business. And do you want to know that none of that still is enough, right? Because I can't, the more I attach my worth to how things on the outside are going, the more I actually continue this emotional roller coaster of when things are going well, that means I'm going well, right? If I'm attaching my worth to it. If things are not going well, that means I'm not doing well. And so I teach people how to like, you know, own your worth, know who you are, while all the other things around your life are going up and down, because they do, because that literally is life. Like we all want a happy, fulfilled life, but guess what? Like that is from deep within your soul to know that things are well with God, first and foremost, is what I believe. And then also with me, with Danielle Schaaf, you know, with who I am as a woman. And so a really quick story I want to share about dating, because you brought that up, and I'm so glad that you did, because I used to date and attach my worth to it for years. I mean, when a man rejected me, I just cried myself to sleep for gosh, days, weeks, depends on how much I liked him. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm saying that's normal. Like you said, that's a normal response. Yeah. Please cry. I literally cry every week. Like I'm a crier. I love to cry. I love
same.
To express. Okay, beautiful.
There's a reason why I'm an actor. It's like,
yes,
I'm
that's
free
amazing.
to cry whenever I want. Yeah.
Like I love that God made us emotional beings, but those emotions are not meant to like plug and play at the woman and man that we are in our core. And, you know, and it's so easy to attach those together in dating. So let me tell you this real quick. I've been through a broken engagement. My best friend of 10 years, I thought I knew him. Turns out I didn't. And he broke up with me 3 months before the wedding was planned. Like everything was set in stone. We had a vision to have when we were going to start having kids. Like I had never had sex before, so we were going to have sex on our wedding night. And, you know, I was preparing for all of that and started tracking my cycle, started dreaming about like my future with this man. And all of a sudden it all came crumbling down on March 20th of 2016. I'll never forget the day because it's imprinted in me because
today is March 20th.
Wait, are you serious?
I just had to point that out. And anyone listening, this is going to come out in a few weeks, but that is insane.
Okay, so what is it, 2021? So 6 years later.
Wow.
Oh my, I am a healed woman from that broken engagement. I love the woman I am because that was the point where I realized when he broke up with me on that day, I said things to myself like, you're an awful woman. What did you do? What did I do wrong to make him leave? What can I do different to make him come back? What could I have said different? What could I have done different? Where did I go wrong? Taking all the blame on me. Like I'm questioning my worth in such a deep, deep way. And I went into a deep depression after that, which again is normal. Like I just lost my best friend and everything I knew about my life came crashing down. But as I got into therapy, I got into coaching myself. I received coaching and I realized, wow, this is not the end.
Wow.
Yes, this is hard. Yes, this is so hurtful, but there is a way to move past this. And on March 20th, 2016, I was in my kitchen. I looked up at God and I said, God, this is going to be a really long road of healing. I already know that it is. And I'm going to be tempted to want to put my heart in a box and to never love again and never be loved again. So will you help me? Will you be with me while I take on this journey? And you know what he did? He is continuing to work with me and love me and to bring me to the woman. I have a business around teaching women who go through heartbreak how to get over it.
That's so incredible.
It's so incredible. Like he took my most painful moment and has turned it into incredible purpose. And I think to go back to your original question, like, you know, wait, what was your original question?
Just how if there's ever been moments where you felt like you were needing to work to prove your self-worth. Yeah. And
this is what I want to say. I wanted to end with this, Kirsten, is that from that day 6 years ago, I have learned how to not work for my worth in dating relationships, but it didn't happen. The next guy I dated, you know, there were still residual effects, not so much of my healing because I was ready to date again. It took me about 3 years to heal and get ready to date again. But like not until like a year ago did I really start realizing like, oh my gosh, if they don't want me, that's cool. That's cool. Like I'm me. Like, and Kirsten, I went on a date with a man who's 10 years older than me about 3 months ago. And he told me that he wanted to see me again. And I said, I want to see you again too. This was so much fun. And on my car ride to the date, you know what I prayed? I said, Lord, I don't want to work for my worth in this date. I don't want to tell him all these amazing accomplishments I've done to make myself look better. I just want to be me. I was coaching myself and talking with God in the car ride on the way to this date. And guess what? I showed up. I was me and it was natural. It was incredible. And at the end of the day, he said, I want to see you again. And you know what? 2 weeks later, he never responded back to me. He never asked to see me again. And in fact, he told his friend, he didn't tell me why he didn't want to see me again. And I was able to take that and be like, you know what? That's not my problem. I showed up. I didn't work for my worth on this day. I showed up 100%. And in fact, he was the one who was insecure and he was the one who who lacks confidence. And he's the one who I think needs some life coaching with Danielle Schaaf around his worth.
Yeah.
Great guy, not for me. And I'm able to, again, say, okay, I own that. That's cool. You know, next. So that's healing. That's
amazing. And there's so many things that you said that I want to talk about, but I think first I just want to acknowledge how brave it was for you to acknowledge when that heartbreak happened on March 20th, 5-6 years ago, that it was an opportunity to be shaped and to be healed. And it's incredible. I don't think that anything is coincidence. I think that when heartbreak happens, that it can always be worked together for good. And then that like insecurity and that heartbreak you walked through actually can be like your greatest strength to connect with others and to empower others. And so it's incredible that you like held that with an open hand, and now you're literally doing that. And also just like what a bullet you must have dodged. Like if that was something that happened a few months before the wedding, it's like, at least it happened before. And then it like kind of catapulted you onto this journey of really getting like a strong foundation in healing who you are, and now using that to help others. And I think in terms of the story that you just shared about, first of all, that it is a journey, and that like, even if you feel like you're getting stronger in something, that maybe then you'll like take a few steps back, but that it did take a few years to get to that point of like, I'm going to go into this date, and by the way, it's a win. Even if he doesn't call me back, it's a win that I walked in not having to prove anything. And I think there's so much that like with dating that I always say like overlaps with Hollywood and being an actor, because you're constantly walking into rooms and like the odds are that you will be rejected. Like it's like a 90% chance that you won't get the role. So like with that, like when your expectation is rejection, there's actually so much freedom that comes from that if you can look at it in a healthy way. So instead of going in and being like, I need to book the job, it's like, I'm an artist and I'm going to walk in and I'm going to show them my painting. And they might not want to buy my painting, but that doesn't mean that my painting isn't amazing. I maybe just not right for that room. Maybe like that painting's not right for their room, you know, and maybe they had something else in mind. And again, it doesn't take away from the fact that I'm not a great artist. Like, and so I think so much of that can be applied to dating. Like the person you're going to be with is so uniquely designed for you. So actually the odds that the person you're dating is going to be your like husband or whatever, like taking that pressure off and taking that pressure of like, I need them to like really like me so that I'll be good in my worth, then you can just have more fun with it, have more freedom with it, and then just know that like whoever is meant to see you through God's eyes will. And then the rest is like, if they don't see that, either they're not meant to be in your life, whether it's a relationship or a friendship or whatever the thing is, or like you said, there's trauma that they're dealing with or insecurities that they're dealing with. So I think being able to zoom out and realize like, we think about ourselves a lot more than other people think about us. And it's not always about you. A lot of times it's actually about the other person. So I love everything that you shared with that.
Oh my God. I love what you just said, Kirsten, because gosh, I'm not an actor and I'm not an artist in those ways, but it is like dating. Like that is very parallel. And so I think at the end of the day, that's why my coaching comes in. Like if you're constantly getting rejected and you're not, you know, able to withstand it, or, you know, are you open to feedback? Like, are you open to asking yourself like the hard questions for you so that you can walk in confidence and you can own your worth, own your artwork, own your acting skill, own your dating skill, for lack of better words, or just, you know, own who you are, because at the end of the day, there's two sides to the rejection. There's one, you know, maybe I can improve. Maybe this is an opportunity for me to grow and get better at my skill. And then number two, not letting the rejection define me. Right? And the only way we can do that is if we have defined ourselves. And we know who we are. I know who I am. And, you know, I am 31 years old and I am happily single, and also happily have been praying and wanting a husband for 12 years now. And I have tried and I have not given up hope at all. In fact, God has, I think, really protected me, and I've been able to see that. You've heard this probably, rejection is protection. And as much as it can hurt, you know, my ex, gosh, it's been so long with him, my ex-fiance, but, you know, he's gone off and he's done his own life. And in fact, I was able to talk to him after our breakup and tell him thank you for breaking our marriage or our engagement, because a lot of men would have cowardly married me anyways, knowing that they weren't 100% in.
Wow.
And so I thanked him for it. And I say this to anyone dating, anyone single, like, your standards and your boundaries, you dictate. But if you let other people dictate them, then you actually are probably a people pleaser, and probably just have some inner work to do and to understand yourself and to why your yes can't be yes and your no can't be no. And that's the beauty, though, in being humble. That's the thing. You have to humble yourself and be like, why do I keep having this dating pattern? Or why do I keep getting rejected? Or why do I keep going into a hole, every other day or every week or every month, and I just am so mean to myself, Okay, well, perfect. Ask yourself the question, figure it out, hire someone who's gone through it to help you, and then bam, your life is forever changed.
Yeah. And you made such an important distinction, because I think a lot of times when we talk about self-worth and confidence, it's like, just be confident and you're perfect. And it's like, actually, there's some accountability and like holding up the mirror we have to do. Just because you have self-worth doesn't mean that you can't be open to like growing or to criticism or critique. Like, actually, I think we're constantly getting stronger, and we constantly, like, every day on this earth we should be getting better and better and asking ourselves those hard questions. So, and like, again, the acting analogy really tracks with this. It's like, I know I'm a good actress, but I also know that I can always be getting better.
I love that.
And so, like you said, like, looking at the rejection as twofold of like, yeah, maybe I wasn't right for this role, but then also saying to my manager, can you get feedback from the casting director? Because if it was something that maybe I can grow in, I want to know that so that I can be the strongest I can be. But again, not being afraid of hearing that feedback, and not like, when I hear that feedback, not letting that diminish my self-value. So
yes. That's the difference. You have to be strong enough to like be able to receive that.
Right. But vulnerable enough to
vulnerable.
like, yeah. So like, strength and vulnerability, I think a lot of times seems like they can't go hand in hand, but I actually think, and I love Brene Brown. I talk about her all the time on this podcast.
She's awesome.
But her whole like thesis is like, you can't be courageous and strong without vulnerability. Like, the two are so intertwined, because it takes courage to be vulnerable. And so anyhow, I love everything that you're saying. And I think part of what I wanted to unpack a little more as well, which you were starting to touch on, is like noticing these trends and patterns of like, I mean, for lack of better words, my dad always says like, if everyone's the asshole, you're the asshole.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's true.
If you keep getting rejected and you keep getting like having these patterns, it's like, wait, why does this keep happening? Is it because I'm not setting boundaries? Is it behavior and unhealthy patterns that I'm walking in? And I know that when we talked, you mentioned this like generational pattern and like noticing themes in like generational curses, as some people call it. And so I know that's something that you've walked through. Can you just unpack a little bit what that is and what your experience was with that?
Gosh, I love this question, and I love that you said that. And going back to what we said at the very beginning, it takes humility to admit and to acknowledge if there is an unhealthy pattern in your life that you want to change, that you are probably a part of it. Not all of it, but a part of it. And so the first step is to say, okay, what about me keeps it? For example, I have had a unhealthy dating pattern. And I realized that most of the men I had attracted were addicts. And not addicts in like, they were addicts who had their life together, who were fighting for freedom, who were fighting to be good men. Like, they're not horrible men or anything like that, but they had undiagnosed, untreated, patterns in their own life. And I realized, oh my gosh, why do I keep attracting this? Like, am I an addict? And, it took a lot of humility to look inside and say, you know what? So going back to the generational thing, my mother is an addict. She is an alcoholic, and I grew up in an emotionally abusive home, and that was really rough for me. And really, really, not until my 20s did I start getting therapy and help. That did I kind of realize more about myself and how I have some, addicted tendencies and patterns in my own life. And then also, so going back to generational, my mom is an alcoholic. My mom's mom is an alcoholic. and her mom was an alcoholic. Okay.
Wow.
So we've got alcoholism, but it's not just alcoholism. It is, divorce. It's, not knowing how to communicate how you feel, not being codependent, which is people pleasing. I grew up in a home of people pleasers. And so I became one, and I realized, oh, this is how I get what I want, or I look so good to other people, is by giving them what they want. So then forget what I want.
Right.
Forget my worth. I'm just here to help other people look good. And I mean, I was homecoming queen. I was Miss Congeniality in a pageant. Like, I have attained this personality that is very, like, really great with people. But on the inside, it has not been the healthiest. Now I'm in a really cool spot. But guess what? I'm still seeing a life coach for myself. I've hired a business coach myself. Like, I'm constantly, while I'm moving, I'm also receiving. And so going back to the generational thing, it wasn't until I realized, okay, there's a pattern in my dating, and that part of it's with me. And so then I get to change me, and I get to acknowledge, why do I keep attracting men like this? Because they like women who are people pleasers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And while I never actually wanted to be their mother, or I just wanted to be their girlfriend, I just wanted to be a fiance, I ended up kind of turning into a counselor / life coach to them, because I would help them. I would be the inspirer. I would be like, hey, are you sure you should do that? Or, hey, you should think about this. All the while, never not getting that in return.
Wow.
And thinking that was enough, but it's not. It's a two-way street to be in a healthy relationship.
Absolutely.
I was the one, hey, let's go to counseling and get some tips on how to communicate better here. I was the one, hey, are you in recovery for that? Have you ever been in recovery for that? Hey, all the while realizing, ooh, I got to do that myself too.
Yeah.
Like let me check myself too.
Absolutely. And again, it comes back to the two-way street thing of
Yep.
What is my accountability in this? And I think sometimes there can be so much shame that comes when you're like, I'm constantly getting rejected, or I'm constantly dating addicts, and what is wrong with me? But I think what's so beautiful is realizing this is how you were raised, and also it's a beautiful thing to want to help other people. And so
yes.
There's actually a strength in this thing that can be a weakness. Once you learn that, oh, I need to set boundaries around this people pleasing, then it becomes a strength, because it's that's just an extension of your beautiful heart of wanting to help people.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you, but realizing that's actually not healthy. And that, I'm a people pleaser too. So I think a lot of women struggle with that.
Yeah.
And then it ends up looking especially when that's been rewarded your whole life, and being Miss Congeniality and homecoming queen, it's realizing that that's actually what you're associating with love, is when you people please. But I'm it's incredible that you walked through that and unpacked that, because I think a lot of us carry that into relationships. We all carry some kind of trauma into relationships, or realize that the way we see the world is not the way that everyone else sees the world. And so there can be this dysfunction within relationships because of things that we haven't even unpacked and healed. So I love, and I'm inspired by the fact that you really did that deep dive and that work on yourself, and also analyzing how it was impacted by your family life and kind of the generational thing. So, and my other question, this is actually a good segue about talking about addicts and dating these people that you are always trying to help. I think sometimes, and I definitely am, guilty of this, dating people when you see potential. And you actually posted a reel on this yesterday about not dating potential. Because I think when you have that heart to want to help people, which is amazing, sometimes you don't put that boundary for yourself of I can help people, but not in my dating. I shouldn't be dating potential. So,
well, we date potential when we don't know our full worth. I think it is a direct, and this may ruffle some feathers, because you have to be humble to hear this, but I think when we're looking for potential and we're dating people we're making excuses for, or who aren't really quite at our level, but they'll eventually get there because I eventually got there. Mm-hmm. It is actually a reflection of how I view my worth and what I am worth and what my value is. And I only know this because I have done this many of times. Okay. Like, I'm an amazing woman and I love the woman that I am. I love the woman I'm becoming. I love my strengths and my weaknesses, and I own both of them. And like, for example, my dating from this point forward it's been different ever since I've been changed, not only by God, but by my own inner work. Like you said, I've done some really deep inner work, and it's just like, it's not like this pious, like, I'm better than you, so you can just go over there because you're this horrible dude and I'm this amazing woman. Now, I used to think like that, but that's not being humble. That's actually being an a-hole. And so the difference is like, ooh, this man in my soul, this doesn't fit right with me. So I'm just going to move on. Or, you know what? I've given him a chance. Didn't work. I'm going to move on instead of stay to give him a million other chances. And I think there's a difference between we should give grace and forgive one another for the things we do against each other, for the things we fall short of in friendships and dating relationships and marriages and all the above. But listen, you're going to find a pattern. That's why you date. You learn each other's ways. You learn each other's patterns. And if it's a pattern that you do not like, or that sits unwell with your spirit, or that you just say to yourself, oh, okay, he doesn't show up on time now, but I'm sure he will in the future, like once he knows how important this is to me. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And you're going to end up marrying that man or that woman and be very disappointed. And then you'll end up maybe resenting each other or blaming each other. Because I work with married women, and I know women who've married, and they married for the wrong reasons. But guess what? There's always, this is the beauty. This is where I believe there's always room for change. There's always room for forgiveness. Jesus' love is so powerful. It covers a multitude of sins. And so any marriage can be turned around. Any dating relationship can be turned around. Any pattern can be turned around. It's just, you have to humble yourself and be like, this isn't how I want to live anymore. Or you know what? Know your worth and say, I am worth more than this, so I'm going to work on myself first.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how it goes.
I think a lot of times people think when you're in a relationship, then you'll be whole and you'll be complete. And so
oh, Lord, yeah.
They think that then the healing will come. But it's like, no, you actually, like, if you want a healthy relationship, you need to be whole first, because then you'll attract other people that are also whole and like not seeking validation in a relationship. And also, you said something that is really, really key, and it reminded me of, there's a pastor, Rich Wilkerson Jr., that he did a sermon about how a lot of married women complain that their husbands aren't working for their marriage, but he's like, well, you didn't make him work to get you, and like, you kind of like excused these things in dating. Why would you think he'd change that now that he has you if he wasn't
Lord.
That way in dating? So I think it's just being really honest with yourself and noticing,
yes.
like, if he's not showing up on time, if he's not doing these things that I really value, again, there's no shame there, but knowing your worth so that you can step away from that because you know you deserve more.
And I want to speak to the married woman, because I coach singles, dating, and married. Like, I love coaching all relationship status of women. And here's the thing, I'm coaching married women right now, and I get the pleasure of challenging them to look inward. Like, are you having unmet expectations because are you putting your part into the relationship?
Yeah.
You know, and they can receive that and say, no, I'm not. Okay, beautiful. Then let's change it. That's awesome. Okay. So, and again, if he's having a habit that's constantly letting you down, now he has his work cut out for him as well. No one's fully blaming the woman for complaining about that. But the beauty is, like, love, you give not to receive. That's my version of love. And so you give just to give. And then with love with God, like, you receive just to receive. And out of receiving love from God, you can give freely. Like, love is meant to be free, with no strings attached, with no conditions. And I grew up in a home where love had conditions, and it really played with my self-worth. And now I'm still, working through that, in my dating relationships. And, when and if a man comes along my path, I have to always check myself and, before I wreck myself. Like,
right.
Am I just showing up with this man? Listen, I used to use men for money. I used to use men for free meals. I used to use men for company late at night on the phone. I've stayed in relationships longer than I should have because I wasn't honest with myself, because I knew that if I were to break up with that man, I would be sad and lonely and I'd have to work through my rejection, and I'd rather just stay a little bit longer so that I don't have to get to that point. I don't think like this anymore, but I know a lot of people do, a lot of women and men do. And it's like that whole thing, that whole pattern, that whole thing has to do with you and your insecurities and your struggles. And the beauty is that you can change all that if you want to. I only take on clients that want to change and that want to do the work. Because if you're not, you're just not a good fit for me, because that's who I work with. And you're going to waste your time and my time.
Right.
Right.
And I think like any change, it has to be intrinsically motivated. Like you have to do it, because I think any transformation happens from the inside out. And I mean, Danielle and I are both Christians. Like you don't have to believe what we believe, but like part of that Christianity, it's like, it's not about behavior modification. It's about like a heart transformation that then leads to your behavior changing. It's not it's not outward in, it's inside out, which I think sometimes is very countercultural, because in our society, we're so about appearances and fake it till you make it and post your highlight reel on Instagram. But a lot of what we're talking about really comes down to being vulnerable of like, I need healing, and being vulnerable to I'm not perfect in this relationship, and being vulnerable to I need some help with life coaching, and that there's actually no shame in that. And it's like, there's so much power. And I love that like our generation is kind of like destigmatized therapy, I think. Because like, especially here in LA, like everyone I know is a therapist, and where I'm from back on the East Coast, it's like, oh, you go to therapy. It was just like this stigmatized thing. I remember when I was a kid, like I was, my parents brought me to a therapist because they were like, I was such a perfectionist. It was like really unhealthy.
Wow.
And I was diagnosed with OCD, and they made me go to therapy. And I was so mad because, again, my perfectionist self saw it as a weakness, that I had OCD, but also that I was having to see a therapist. So it was like caused so much shame in me. But now I realize the power in like being able to work through those weaknesses, because then, like we said, it actually becomes your strength.
Another reel, I would love for whoever's watching this to follow me, for great content. My Instagram is Danielle Schaaf. And I made a reel on Valentine's Day, actually, and it was explaining my love story. And my love story includes a lot of pain and breakups, and also freedom and vulnerability, and being able to admit, like, I've actually self-diagnosed as a love addict. And I don't even know if you've heard of that before. Have you heard of that before?
I have, yeah. But
cool.
I'd love if you could like unpack it a little more, because I don't know a ton about it.
Yeah, basically a love addict is somebody who finds their aspiration, their worth, and their validation from a person being in a romantic relationship with them. So love essentially is their drug. So like when you're in a relationship with somebody, you're on a high, and like hanging out with them, going on a date with them is like the highlight of your week, your day. And then when they're not in your life, you're low because you're waiting for that next fix, that next relationship, that next, for some, it goes together, sex and love addiction. And I more have been on the love, which is more of the emotional connection part, the piece that people like hold on to. And so I've been like grasping for men's attention since I've been a little girl. Like that is kind of where I went and found a lot of validation when my home was just really struggling. And praise be to God Almighty. He did a work in me when I was 16, and, I have a testimony of 180, but this pattern of attracting a certain type of male, a man, or like really getting deep with myself, like, okay, I think I have a problem because I keep attracting this type of man. What's going on with me? And here's the beauty, not like what's wrong with me. I teach my clients to ask 3 different W's, not the W, what's wrong with me, but the 3 W's in what's your why, what do you want, or what God wants for you, and what's your worth. So those are the 3 questions we should be asking ourselves. Not what's wrong with me. What is my why? Why am I? It's beautiful. It's powerful. Like, do this exercise with every decision you make if you want, or the harder ones or the good ones. Like, what's my why? What's my want? And what's my worth in all of this? And when I ask myself those things, I realized I don't actually want this man for who he is. I'm actually using him like for myself.
Yeah, that is so
That's
powerful.
Gotta go.
That is so powerful. Yeah. And I think like I've uncovered that too in my dating. Like I said, I'm like part of the OCD is like, I like to achieve and be a perfectionist and get what I want. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, so I'm the achiever.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So part of that can be really dangerous in dating, where it's like, you see like the guy giving you attention as achieving. And then when you're not, you're like, oh, I'm just going to push harder. I'm going to push harder. But then I've had moments where I'm like, do I even want to date this person? You know, because we lose sight about it, because you get into these like toxic patterns of like thinking that that's normal. Right. And so I love that. The 3 W's: why, what's your worth, and what was the third one?
What's your why? What do you want? And what's your worth?
It's amazing. I'm going to write that down.
Ask yourself that, and you'll start it'll change you. It'll change you. Yeah.
Well, that's incredible.
Beautiful.
And I would just love if you could, kind of like winding down here, what was like your biggest takeaway, and like what has been your biggest takeaway from your season of singleness? I know we've kind of talked about that season a lot, so I'd love if you could just share what you took out of that and what you're taking out of that.
Oh, I love this question because I'm currently single and I love it. But for a long time, I did not like my singleness season. I thought it was a curse for some reason. I actually went to a Bible college, and I will never forget this moment. There was a woman, she was in her mid-60s, and she was a professor, and she had never married, and she traveled the world. She was a missionary, and she was just an amazing woman who mentored other women and taught at my Bible college. And I looked at her, I was 22 years old. I looked at her and I said, how are you single and happy right now? Because I told her, I said, that is just my biggest nightmare, is to be older and single. And she looked at me and she said, oh, Danielle, I know you will learn the answer to that one day.
Wow.
And I'm not going to tell you, but you're going to learn it.
Wow.
It was so powerful. She didn't even answer the question for me. And here I am, 31, so like 9 years later, and I have the answer. And it is, singleness is a gift. It is a literal gift. And when I'm looking at it as a nightmare, that means I have to look inward and ask, what is going on with my why? What is going on with my want? And what is going on with my worth right now? Because something's going on here. And I think that the reason it was such a nightmare at some point in my life is because I thought that my worth and my wants, I want to get married. I've wanted to get married. The desire has been at some point so strong that I would just cry myself to sleep. And I realized, God, are you with God? I don't believe God withholds. So I'm like, okay, how is this your path for me? I don't understand. All I want to do is get married and have some kids and do the dang thing. That's all I want. And I realized I still want that today, but now it's free.
Yes.
It's a desire that is free. Yeah. I am free to marry and I'm free to be single. And so it is a gift. So like, if you're struggling in your singleness, then ask yourself those 3 questions and get real with yourself. Like, are you just waiting? I used to think my life was going to start and happen when I got married.
Wow.
Like, I used to wait, like I waited to buy a freaking comforter that I liked because I was like, I'm going to get married and we'll buy one together. I mean, it sounds silly, but I know maybe there's someone listening who feels like that. And it's not silly because it's real, because we have this crazy fairy tale thing. Now, I grew up on the East Coast, Midwest. And so it's a little bit more conservative, and I went to a Bible college, and so I've been around people who tend to marry younger. And I thought I'd miss my chance in my 20s. And guess what? You mentioned this earlier, Kirsten, about taking the pressure off yourself. I used to put so much pressure on dating. I'd be like, okay, is this going to be my husband? Like 3 dates in?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, boo-boos, like settle down. Like, just have fun, like be you. And I can do that now at 31 and at 30 and 29. But, it took personally, my journey has been a journey to get here, but it is a journey that I get to teach other people and can help other people. And also, if you're watching this and you love your singleness, bravo. That's good. Hopefully, because I want us to beware, though, to not love our singleness so much that we're now putting our worth in our singleness.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? And our singleness status.
Wow.
Because it's not, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's like honestly been my journey. Like my parents got divorced when I was 13. And then I also like always knew from a young age that I wanted to move out to LA to pursue acting. And I was always, like I said, like the achiever and like knew what I wanted, which was great. But especially after my parents got divorced, I was like, well, love, you guys just showed me that like love can't last basically. And so I got this like chip on my shoulder of like, I'm not going to let anyone else in because they're going to distract me from my dreams and they're probably just going to let me down anyway. And so I got in this like mode of like really valuing my independence and my singleness and like being proud of that and like I didn't want to give anyone my time because I thought they would waste it. So then I had to do this reverse healing journey of like letting people in and then still getting hurt, which was hard because it's like I'm working so hard to be vulnerable and like let people in and I'm not necessarily seeing the reward of that right away. But it's kind of like I had to like, it's like a pendulum. A lot of times these things are pendulum. You have to like swing to one extreme and swing and then you end up back in the middle somewhere. And I think whether it be what you said, which was so beautiful that I just want to talk about, is like wanting something so bad, like wanting a marriage and kids so bad is such a beautiful thing. And like God sees that desire and that heart posture and like wants to give you that. But I think if the dream is like so like big and like you want it so much, it can actually destroy you when you get it if you don't know how to handle it. And I've always felt that way about my acting career. It's like I've wanted this from the time I was 6 and probably before that, but the written record I have of it was when I was 6 writing that I wanted to be an actress. And so like, but I see if I would have gotten what I wanted in my career at the age that I wanted, it would have destroyed me. Wow. And so I think we have to get to this place of freedom before those things can enter our lives, whether it's a relationship or a dream, because otherwise it'll take us out. And I think we attach our value and we teach kids when they're young, what do you want to be when you grow up? Showing them that their identity comes from what they do. And like young girls, like I think we put a lot of pressure on like getting married and that you are going to be a mom and a wife. And again, those are great things to aspire to, but they don't change your value and who you are day to day. Because then you get those things and then you find out, guess what? I'm still insecure Kirsten and I have these things that are broken within me that I haven't healed. And I thought that this thing that I've wanted for so long was going to heal it, but now it hasn't. And that leads to a lot of depression and despair. And and then you can't enjoy the thing that you've wanted and prayed for so long. Exactly. So I just love everything you've shared about your journey, really, of like getting to that place of freedom and seeing singleness as a gift and knowing that you're good now, and like when your husband comes into your life, like you're going to be even better, but like that doesn't change how good you are now. So I love that.
Another thing I just want to add on, I come from a broken home, a divorce as well, and then also, addiction. And I so badly, partly because of that, I so badly wanted to also get married to create my own generation and my own family that's healthy, that's whole, that's sober, that's faithful, that's kind, that's loving. I mean, I have a list of my future generation that, is going to come from me. I think about this, I pray about this, and I dream about it, but I'm no longer like white fisting to get myself to it. Now, like you said, it's freedom and like, Christ has come to truly set us free and to help us live life to the full. And if you are not able to do that right now, then that is okay. Then, figure out ways to go about doing that and getting that, because it is so good. Like you said, it's so good to have desires. It's so good to dream. Actually, when we stop dreaming, I think there's a part of us that's just not living fully when we're not dreaming. And so, but like dreaming freely and dating freely and being in a marriage freely and, being single freely, that's where the beautiful, picture comes in that we're all craving. we all want to be free. We all want to be full. We all want to know our worth and walk in it. But sometimes, it's a fight, and it's a fight worth having and doing.
Yeah, I love that. And it really is. It's just like this push and pull of like holding on to it, but holding it lightly. Like you don't want to give up, but you don't want to squash it. My friend has this analogy she uses of like, picture like you're holding a butterfly. Like if you hold it too open, it will fly away. But if you if you crush it, then you'll crush its wings. And so you have to just hold it really delicately, whether it's a dream for a relationship or a career, or whatever the thing is, just like hold it lightly. And that butterfly analogy has helped me.
That's awesome. I love that.
So Danielle, if you could leave listeners with one thing, I know you have so much wisdom and gems you can share, but like one thing that you want them to be left with, what would it be?
It would be this, that anything that's happened to you in the past is the past, whether it was really great or really horrific. Living in your present and knowing your worth and walking in it is fully 100%. Not only is it possible, but it is what's best for you. And so that's what I would leave you, question yourself, get real honest with yourself. And if your worth and your self-worth and you fully know who you are is good, then awesome. And if it's not, then also awesome. And figure out ways of how you may need to work on that. You can hire somebody like me. You can see a therapist. You can listen to awesome podcasts. You can, begin to do the journey of working on yourself to getting yourself where you want to be.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
And last and final question, I ask everyone this question. The name of this podcast obviously is Imperfect, and we've talked a lot about this today of like the things that we see as our weaknesses actually can be a strength when we learn how to embrace them and heal them. So with that, what would be the imperfection that you're most proud of?
I love this question. And, I ask a similar question in my interviews, but I think right now I'm going to just choose the most present one instead of the past. It's the most vulnerable answer that I have. And I'm going to say it. It is my business. My business is nowhere near perfect. And I have a lot of, work cut out for me right now. But in that, I am so convinced of my worth, and I'm convinced that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so that keeps me going, even though every other day I'm questioning, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to be doing? Is this right? I don't know. How do I get clients? How do I do this? And then I'm just you know what? I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to give up.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable, because I think no matter what it is, there's always an easy answer, and then there's a vulnerable answer.
I gave the vulnerable one.
Yes,
it's my business.
So thank you for saying that, because it is I think there's so much power that comes when we share vulnerabilities, because then it creates the space of oh, I feel like I can share what I'm vulnerable about. And then we can all walk on this journey of healing and growing together. And by the way, your business, we met online because of your business too.
Right.
So it's
that's
seeing
awesome.
And no matter anyone listening, if you're starting something up, you're starting a business, or you're on this journey that feels messy and you're still in the beginning stages. I'm definitely in that with my podcast too. And it's great to want to identify how can I get better in these things, but also don't despise the days of small beginnings, and seeing this is so cool that we got to connect and do this. And it's part of it was because we're willing to step out and do that. So I just want to remind you that you're doing incredible in your business. Aww. And I'm grateful that you came on and shared all of your wisdom and your heart with everyone listening. Yes. I know I definitely was impacted by this conversation.
Oh, I received that. Thank you, Kirsten. And I want to give it right back to you. I'm so proud of you for stepping out in faith. I've talked with you a little bit, and I know your heart, and it is so inspiring. And I just have been so inspired by your journey, and I love what you're doing. And I'm so happy to have been a part of this.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And so anyone that's listening, how can they connect with you on social media and just stay in touch?
Yes. So find me on Instagram, Danielle Lynn Schaaf. And then also my website, walkinyourworthseries.com. That is a free, you can opt in. You'll be on my email list. You'll get all the goodies that I give out every week, giveaways and options to coach with me. I have a few spots right now. So find me on IG, DM me, or walkinyourseries.com. And I'd love to hear from any of you through this. It'd be so fun.
Yes, and honestly, her content that she posts is so inspiring. I'm constantly getting like daily reminders of these things that we've been talking about that I need.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to follow her. And Danielle, I'm just so grateful for you. Thanks again for joining today.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.